So I compound fracture of the right tibia. I crushed my left foot, ankle ligaments, broke my wrist, popped the back of my elbow, and then I crushed the left side of my face. I got wire and everything in there, and then I had subdural hematoma of the brain, and that ended my running career.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Dan, thank you for coming today. I appreciate it. So I guess kick us off starting, where were you born and kind of where'd you grow up? Tell us a little bit about your childhood.
All right, I grew up in Centerfield, Utah, which is just a twin city of Gunnison. The sign divides them. Grew up on first a dairy farm, feeding calves, working on the dairy farm, and then Dad sold all the dairy cows. Well, the family did, because it was a family dairy, and then he took over the farm for a little while, and we did beef cattle. Grew up riding horses, just playing, hunting rabbits, whatever you wanted out on the farm all the time. And then grew up, and about 12 years old, my cousin took over the farm, and then went out and just played a lot of sports.
So I know growing up, I also grew up on a farm, but I know growing up on a farm, you learn certain life lessons that kind of stick with you forever, right? There's stuff that I believe that growing up on a farm, you can't learn anywhere else.
Absolutely.
What are some of those things that you kind of learned from ages till you can remember up to 12 where you got rid of the farm? Because I think it's important, because for me, they've stuck with me for a really long time, and I wouldn't be able to learn them another way. So do you have any of those?
Absolutely. It's funny that you say that, because I always talked with my wife that one day I want to own a little farm, because I want to take my kids there so they can experience that life. Because more than anything, it taught me the importance of work and how to work hard. Like, it's not a glamorous job. Nobody cares about what a farmer's doing, but at the same time, it's pretty vital in what we do, and support people, whatever you provide. But more important than that, the work ethic that comes from that. Moving sprinklers early in the morning, and then cutting, baling, feeding calves. Dairy cows there's nonstop work with those things. And I just remember every morning, got to get up and go do work. And of course, you complain about it, but when you look back on it, I'm so glad that I had those experiences, and I want my kids to have those experiences. And there's nothing more important than, this is hard, but I can do hard things, but I can go work.
And growing up, there's not really, as far as I know, I'm sure there is other ways, but it's really hard to teach that in the world today. Just because running cows and a cow-calf operation, things like that, the cows are never born on the warmest day. They're never born when the sun's shining. They're always born in a snowbank, and it's just really interesting, because I think that's how life is, and I think a lot of times we try to raise our kids, or we try to do things in our life where we make it really easy for them, and then it turns 18 and real life hits. It's like, that's not how real life is. Real life does have situations where the calf is born in the snowbank, so I think that's important. So it's kind of cool that you learned that.
Absolutely. I mean, life is going to throw you hard situations all the time, and I don't know how many times you have to go find the baby calf because mom's wandered off and it's buried, or not buried somewhere, but it's still laying somewhere in the cold, or you blow a riser because you did something dumb, and Dad is just upset. Like, why did you do that? And at the same time, you got to go fix it. And then life is difficult, and it throws challenges your way all the time, and there's no better way to, in my opinion, learn how to do that.
So did you blow a riser?
Oh, a few.
Any good stories?
Well, one time, when my cousin took over, I was moving sprinklers for him, and Uncle Val got mad at me this time, my dad's brother. But I'm cruising out the field on the four-wheeler, and I'm not paying attention, but one of the swing lines is poking out into the road. You drive through the field. I didn't pay attention at all, and I hit that with the wheel, blew the tire on the four-wheeler, and poof. Oh, man, Uncle Val was so upset.
I bet you dug it up and fixed it.
Oh, yeah. And him cussing the whole time.
Yeah. So growing up on the farm, you learn certain lessons. Your dad gets rid of it at age 12, and then you said you started playing a lot of sports, which I know a lot of the lessons that you learned on the farm probably translated into sports. What sports, what were you doing? How good were you at them?
Anything that was competitive, I loved. I grew up wrestling, so I enjoyed wrestling. But when high school hit, I decided I wanted to try basketball as a freshman. That was a mistake. I should have just stuck with wrestling. But I love football. I was, at first, really tough. Everyone says this, but sometimes it's a name game, you know what I mean? And I didn't have the right name to start with, so I had to prove myself. I had to go out and work, and I was willing to do that. Learn that from, that's all Mom and Dad taught me. At one point, I wanted to quit as a freshman in football, and my mom's like, you're not quitting. Like, you started, you committed, you're gonna finish this out. If you don't want to play again next year, that's fine, but you're not quitting. So I'm grateful for parents that do that, but love football, and that changed my mindset. I went out and I worked and started playing JV, and I wasn't playing on the freshman team because the coaches recognized that. And so I got excited about that, tried basketball. That was a mistake. I wish I would have continued wrestling, and I ended up wrestling 2 years and placed fourth at state.
Oh, nice.
As a senior. But I enjoyed that. I enjoy individual sports, and that's the one where I excel the most at. Is I decided to try out for track.
Okay.
You don't have to try out very much. You just show up, especially in Gunnison. Don't have a track. It's grass. That's what we train on, is running around the football field. You can see the line that goes around it. It's just dirt, you know. Coach Pete says, go ahead and why don't you try these hurdles? You look long. Man, that was ugly. I was everywhere. Every time I ran, every time it was just ugly. And I thought, I saw the guys over there playing baseball. I'd played baseball. I'm going to go try out. Went and tried out. And they said, the problem is you didn't try out the first day. You missed the first day of tryouts. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I went back and ran track. Qualified as a hurdler for state. Life goes on, and I became a state champ in both the 300s and the 100-meter hurdles, 110-meter high hurdles. Had the opportunity to go play a run in college.
Really?
Yeah.
So you started as a freshman. Is that when you first track season?
Mm-hmm.
Never done it before.
No.
Never ran.
I love to run. I was fast, just naturally that way.
And Gunnison Valley High School does not have a track at this point.
No.
Just grass
Just
loop.
grass.
You show up. Coach tells you to run the hurdles. It's not pretty day one.
No.
How long until it started to be pretty and you realized you were fast and then you got competitive? I bet it didn't happen day one.
No, not at all. So with Coach Pete, he was the only coach at the time helping, and he did what he could to help me learn to hurdle. But the number one advice he gave me was, you see those guys that are the fastest? Go watch them. Do anything that they do for drills, warm-ups, that kind of stuff. Go learn from them. And I didn't do a lot of talking to them, because some of them, were big time. Like, they were fast. They didn't want to bother some new guy that looked like a gazelle. Not even a gazelle. I was just an awkward crane running through the hurdles, man. But the first time I did it, it was in North San Pete, and I ran a decent time, and I had never ran before. And I 3-stepped, so that's the big thing. You want to 3-step in between the 110-meter hurdles. Well, I got 3 steps between, like, the first 8, and the coach is like, wow, good job, man, this is great. So he gets excited. Go learn from them. By the end of the year, I looked okay, but it wasn't the finished product that it ended up becoming, because I don't like to talk about myself, but I worked hard at perfecting the technique of running hurdles. I didn't have a lot to do because I ran on grass. We went and measured it out, spray painted the lines to put the hurdles out. I didn't practice the 300 meter hurdles. We just ran around the track or the football field, because I couldn't get the right distance. I'm not an engineer at that time. I didn't know where to measure from and figure out how to put out those 9 hurdles. But 110s, I was religious about perfecting the hurdle. And the funnest thing to do was as a senior, you go out and start stretching. At one point, I could do full split straddle.
Let's see it now.
Not a chance. Not a chance in hell. I joke, I say that, but it was fun, because then a coach comes over to his kid that's a freshman that's starting to run. He says, watch this guy. And I also was the type of guy, because I had those guys that wouldn't talk to me as a freshman. The state champion, who I thought was a friend, says, oh, you made it to state? Yeah. I placed 3rd in our region. Oh, if you'd have been in our region, you'd have got killed. You never made it. And that fueled me to want to, we find those things that push us, that drive us, and that was one of them. I just said, I'm going to figure out how to do this, and I placed second as a junior in both the 300s and the 110s, and then as a senior. And I had a good rivalry too. There was a kid from Morgan. We were good friends and we pushed each other. He won our junior year and I barely beat him my senior year.
I love it. And it sounds to me like there's a little bit of an underdog growing up, and there's no track, and you probably didn't run state on the grass is my guess.
Nope.
So other people probably looked at you and Gunnison as a little bit of an underdog, and then you had these guys that pushed you and lit a fire under you. And how important is that in life? Because a lot of times in the moment, it's not fun, right? It's not fun, but a lot of times that's what lights the fire, and that's what actually pushes you. So how important is that to have rivalries, have things that push you? I mean, that's not a very good question, is it?
No, that is. I think it is. You got to find motivation somehow, right? A lot of times it's, for me, I just want to be the very best that I can. And it wasn't like, by the time I'm a senior, I was 2A athlete of the year for track. Mm-hmm. And I was the best athlete in the state. You know what I mean? When it come to running track and doing those things. And it wasn't because it just happened overnight. It happened because I worked. Like I had to, one, push myself, but that one thing that Mr. Curtis said to me from Delta said, well, you wouldn't have made it if you'd have been in our region. That lit my fire, because there's another one. All right, there's another one that's, I've been dealing with that all my life.
Yeah.
Kids telling me, oh, it's this person. He's not going to be able to, we can beat you. We can beat you. You don't deserve to be playing. And that's what I always heard. And there's those little things, one, to motivate you. But for me, I didn't want to go out and beat them because I wanted to be better, but I didn't treat other people the same way. I didn't want to treat someone like, oh, you made it to region? Dude, that's awesome. And they'd come and ask you, what can I work on? And I had no problem helping a kid figure out how to run a hurdle and to do a better job and to get faster, because if there's faster kids out there, then it's pushing me to get better. And I have no problems with inspiring that and making them do that. And so having those guys, and then Cody Whittier wasn't great in the 110s, and he'd tell you that, but 300s, that guy had a kick from hell. And I knew he was always coming. I knew that he was going to come and chase me down. That senior year race, his teammate, Jared Barlow, takes off and he beats me to the first hurdle, and nobody beats me to the first hurdle. I'm like, oh crap, he's going. Didn't have the stamina to keep it going. So I caught him. And if I hadn't seen that, Cody would have caught me, because I was 0.05 and Cody was 0.09 when we finished across the finish line. And it's just, and he turns around because I had collapsed, exhausted. He comes over, picks me up, and we hug each other, and we pushed each other. Still to this day, we're good friends. I saw him and we worked for a little while at Independence University. And it was just fun to know that you have that relationship, and we pushed each other to be better.
So you go from being a freshman never running track, and track being your best sport as a senior, and you being the 2A athlete of the year in track. What were a couple keys that led from Dan as a freshman to Dan as a senior? What were a couple keys that kind of took you along that path from beginner to and the best in the state?
I would say, one, Coach Pete would always push. He wasn't always there because he had so much to do with everybody else, but he expected me to work hard. And because of that, I decided I was going to work hard. But just learning that, hey, I could probably do pretty good at this. I'm going to go try to be pretty good at this. And I worked hard. I wanted to be the best technically that I could possibly be. And once again, we're talking about me, but I was known as the guy that ran on grass, and everybody wanted to come and watch because I was the best technically over a hurdle, save one, Slade Coombs, our senior year, but that guy was fast.
So Coach Pete pushed you.
Yep.
Anything else?
Just good teammates, good people, good parents, good family. Mom and dad, like I said, if you started something, you're not quitting. But if you're going to do it, you're going to work hard. And you better give it your effort, whether it's a team or individual sport. I think when it comes to kids and athletics, I think every kid should participate in an individual sport so that they can learn and build confidence in themselves, so they can learn what they're capable of, because it makes them a better teammate.
I love that. It sounds like a little bit of farmer hard work
Absolutely.
played into it. Okay, so take us from you are 2A athlete of the year in track. Take us to kind of the next step, because I know you ran in college a little bit. So where'd you go? How did that happen? Is there a story with that?
I knew I had a couple schools that called me up my senior year and said, hey, you want to come? One was Montana State. I told them, well, I'm probably not going to go to school this year. I'm going to serve a mission, so I'm just working to save money for that. I didn't grow up with a lot of money. Mom and Dad worked their butts off just to get us to where we were. And so I stayed, and I'd tell them that. I'm going on a mission. And, okay, well, let us know when you get back. Maybe we'll talk to you. So a lot of the schools were like, well, we don't want to bother that if they're going on a mission. Go on a mission. Greatest 2 years of my life till after marriage and I have kids. That's a different story, right? But learned a great deal about myself and what I'm capable of once again there, all about hard work. Come back, and I decided to go to SUU. One, because there's a girl down there. Because they wanted me to walk on or go up to Utah State and run. But I went down to Southern Utah University and talked to Coach Hool. He said, sure. Just kind of snickered because he asked, what was your fastest time? And I was like, well, I ran 14.97, 14.95. As a guy that ran on grass. I didn't train on a track. I ran on grass. I was like, well, come, we'll see. This is another one of those things that it's fun to find out that you worked hard and you earned something, because the first day of track practice I show up, I'm not in shape. I'm 195 pounds. I haven't ran in 3 years. And he says, okay, go over hurdle. I go over hurdle. And I start doing drills. I start doing that. And he says, hold on. Coach Hill says, you all need to stop. Daniel, go over that hurdle. I went over the hurdle. It's been 3 years since I've gone over a hurdle. Went over it. And he says, that's what you guys need to look like. I'm like, just a confidence builder. Like, dude, I can do this. So I was able to get on the team. They started traveling me right away. Get to go run the indoor season. I was really excited because in high school, I didn't lift a weight. I just ran fast and worked hard on technique. And I was excited. Started lifting weights, started getting in shape. And I could tell, and I was in still horrible shape, but halfway through the indoor season, I'm already faster, and I should be. I'm older, I'm more mature, stronger. I'm already faster than I was in high school, and I was excited to be able to go run the 400 hurdles. And coach was like, dude, we get you in the weight room, you're gonna be the guy, and just building you up, and you're like, yeah, this is great. So I had the opportunity to go and run, travel to NAU, Idaho State, and the outdoor season is about to start. I'm excited about that. Gunnison's really good at basketball that year. They won state championship. Everybody's coming down to support them. All my cousins, my family, my friends, my wife now, but my girlfriend at the time, my brother-in-law, we're going to go play at Red Cliffs. And we decided to do something. I decided to do something stupid, and I went free climbing, and I fell off a 65-foot cliff. And that ended my running career.
Just like that.
Just like that.
That's crazy.
Do stupid things, you get bad rewards, right?
Right. You want to talk about what happened? You fell off the cliff. Any injuries?
I broke all of my extremities, so I don't remember any of it. I just base it off of what everybody tells me what happened that day. He left because I know he gets emotional. He was there, but they wouldn't let him come see me when I'm flailing on the ground. And we go there, and at one point, it's faded now, but there was a 3-claw mark coming down the sandstone at Red Cliffs that I left there trying to stop myself from falling off a little lip. And I decided to climb up this little vein, got to the top, but I misstepped. When I misstepped, I slipped. And I landed feet first, then on my arms, and smashed my head. So I compound fracture of the right tibia. I crushed my left foot, ankle ligaments, broke my wrist, popped the bone out. You can see my little scar there, popped the bone out the back of my elbow. And then you can probably see the scar up under there. I crushed the left side of my face. I got wire and everything in there, and then I had subdural hematoma of the brain.
Holy cow. So I guess the question that comes to mind is, you've spent the last since you were 12, and now how old are you?
I'm 44. I'll be 45 in April.
Sorry, bad question. You were 12. You started running track as a freshman. How old were you when you fell?
21.
Okay. So 10 or so years you'd been running track and dedicating time, effort, energy, hard work to that, and now you can't run anymore.
Yeah.
It's gone.
It's gone.
That was probably a huge part of your life. Well, of course it was a huge part of your life. Was that hard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really hard. I love running. I grew to love it even more because in college I'd go out and run extra after practice because I knew I wasn't in shape. I just loved it. Loved the feeling of going and competing and just trying to become better. And you wake up one day, everybody's in a hospital room talking to you, and I'm like, what the freak is going on here? I don't remember anything. Well, they've told me every day that I wake up what had happened because I didn't remember. They put me into a chemical coma because of the bleeding in the brain. They take me to a helicopter to St. George. And that doctor, the first thing he says to Mom, who's in Cedar City sitting in the stadium getting ready for the basketball game, and my roommate had to go find him. They call him to the desk. They tell Mom and Dad, well, we've seen people live from this, but they're usually vegetables because of the bleeding that was going on in there. I flight me to Utah Valley. Somehow the bleeding stops. I know what that is. I received blessings. As soon as I fell, my roommate was there. Even people that were innocent bystanders helping to get me out of where it was because it's up in a cliff waterfall area. People jumping in their suits to lower me off that. And you wake up. I was like, no, I was just talking to Brother Birch, my seminary teacher. I was just talking to him in the Centrum yesterday. You've been in the hospital for 2 weeks now. Breathing tubes, that kind of stuff. Finally got it off. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to run again. I can do it. And I had a hard time letting go of that. I even talked to the orthopedic several times. Well, I can go do this again, right? And he says, you could. But if you go do that on a daily basis, that left foot that I crushed, you'll be crippled in 10 years instead of, it's going to happen, instead of 20 or 30 years from now. And I struggled with that. I probably told family and stuff, no, I'm okay. But internally, I dealt with that quite a bit. And I had other struggles because of the traumatic brain injury, other things. And it took a while. I even say I still deal with it today, 22 years later.
Yeah. Do you have any, because you mentioned it earlier when we were talking about hitting a riser, breaking it, bad things happen, right? And our choices lead to certain actions. A lot of times we can't choose what comes out of those choices, right? And the same thing with your accident. Do you have any advice? Well, the reason I'm asking this is because you said with the riser, life is full of things that happen to us. And it's not always good, right? A lot of times it's rocky, and a lot of times the fall at the bottom hurts, and we get in these situations where life's hard. What advice, or do you have any advice for people going through varying degrees of things right now? What got you through it, and what helped you through those times? Because so many people are going through it, and it's real life, right? We all fall off cliffs in our life, and sometimes it's we get hurt physically, sometimes we get hurt mentally, and sometimes relationships happen, whatever. Do you have any advice for people going through those right now?
Based off of what I went through and how I dealt with it, I mean, everybody would be like, oh man, that's sad. Why did that happen to you? Or in some cases, other people, why did that have to happen to them? And my thought process for me was, I mean, I put myself in that situation. And nobody's fault but mine. Mom, family, Dad, that's the support group, and my wife that got me through that. They remind me all the time that, oh, I'm fine, I'm not dealing with it. But they're like, no, there's things going on there. And faith is the number one thing for me, is that regardless of what your faith is, if you have faith in something, that's what pulled me through most of the time. Like, this isn't God's fault. I'm not going to blame this on God. But what I am going to do is, what can I learn from this? I was given a great blessing. I should have died. There's no reason I'm here other than, for some reason, God saved me. I don't know what that reason is. Sometimes people don't get saved, and oftentimes I feel guilty. Why would I get something like that? doesn't matter. We're given challenges, we're given hardships in our lives. And the only way to get over those is the faith that we have and the support group that we have. And I had a great support group remind me that, hey, you damage your frontal lobes, you damage these things. Essentially, I had to relearn how to control emotions, which was frustrating to me because I'd gone through my life and figured that out.
Yeah.
And then here's this stuff that just overwhelms me, and I'm like, oh. And my wife tells me, no, you got some anger issues. Brothers, moms, dad. You need to learn to control this. You need to, for me, I wanted to learn to figure it out on my own. That's the way I am. Sometimes, and maybe it would have helped, gone and got some professional help. But more than anything, my faith is what helped me get through that.
I love that. And the support crew, it's interesting. I know you still work with some of them today.
Absolutely. Those
relationships, when we go through really hard things, sometimes those relationships can't be built any other way, which is, I know you still work with some of those guys today, and that support group's probably still very similar.
Absolutely.
To you going through things now, right?
Yep.
So we'll kind of go past that accident. You heal up from it. It takes a long time, and I'm sure it's still there's still things that are in your body. There's still things that are happening from that fall, right?
Since it happened, every day I wake up, I'm reminded of what happened. And that's never going to change. That left foot that got crushed is the Achilles heel to Achilles, I guess, I'm reminded every day.
So you fall, and running's no longer a thing. What is the next thing? What'd you put your mind to?
Family. I got married, and I was still busted up. I was in a wheelchair, and we got engaged, and I had to make some money to help buy a ring and get us into an apartment. So I convinced my dad to let me work at the school in the wheelchair, and I wasn't. He's like, well, I can put a little weight on that foot and stuff. They've told me I can do that. And the broken tibia. So I got a pressure hose, and I had to spray the gutter out of the high school track. And it was full of dirt and rocks and stuff, and he wanted that clean. He's like, you don't get to do anything else. And just things like that. I probably pushed myself a little harder than I should have, but at the same time, I had responsibilities. I got a wife now, and then along comes a baby, and the baby is, well, I'm working basically full-time hours at $7 an hour for the cabinet shop. Run into this door-to-door salesman group that wants to sell pest control. And, honey, I could go do that. I want to do that. We can go make good money. And she's like, just nervous, the unknown. But more than that, it was I had to take care of my family. I made a decision and went down that rabbit hole, and here we are today. Didn't go do door-to-door sales. I found out that I had friends that did the installation of alarms, and went and did that instead. That was the easier road, but door-to-door sales is hard.
So you got into installing alarms. How long did you do that for?
Probably about 12 years.
Okay. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Doing summers?
I did summers, but I also got into management.
Okay.
The last thing I did, I went with a company, and I ran an office. I was fortunate. I got a good salesman, and we ran #1 office. We had 4,000 accounts, and it was a good office.
That's great. And then how'd you transition from alarms to solar? How did that happen?
Well, I knew that Vivint had started something. I had gone and talked to a friend of mine that used to run the Vivint, Dan Rock. We used to do alarms together. I was his regional at one time. They moved him over there. I talked to him and said, I'm interested in learning about this. And they had mentioned that they wanted to do it too, being my brothers. And he told me about it, and I was just like, I just don't want to move my family again. At that time, I've got 3 children. The 4th one's close to being on the way. And I just thought, no, I'm going to have to try to do this. So I do other things. I sold cars for a while. I did that for 2 years. Went back to the alarm stuff. That company, unfortunately, goes bankrupt and I didn't want to transition back to Vivint and do all that stuff again. So I went and sold education through independent university and over the phone for a while. That I got tired of because I like working with my hands. So I got a job with an old buddy that worked at Platinum with us, and went and did low voltage stuff up in Park City in the big homes, and installed some really big alarm systems and camera stuff and key access stuff, and learned that. And then that job didn't work out. They slowed down, so we didn't have enough work to keep me going. Went home because that whole thing happened with Platinum, and I moved home. Lost everything at that time because I didn't have enough to pay for my house and whatnot. Life gives you struggles. Started working for the pumpkin farm with David Beck. What a great man. I come to him and said, look, I don't have anything. Do you have some work that I can do? I know you got people that work. And he's like, yeah, let's find a place I can. And from there, all of a sudden, hey, Utah's opening. They're coming back. I'm going to go see if I can work there and figure it out. Tried doing the sales thing first. I'm not a salesman. Not that way. I mean, I did good with cars, but I going and knocking on doors, that's just intimidating, I guess, for me. And didn't do well at it. So knew Julius and I worked together. Chris and all those guys, my brother, put in a good word for me, and they hired me on. Chris wanted me to learn the electrical, and I learned the electrical. And once again, I want to do the very best that I can, and I want to know that stuff because it's on me and the other guys. I don't want them not having a reliable person, because that was his frustration in the first place, is that I need someone that I can rely on. So I learned how to do it.
So how long you been doing solar now?
6 years, 6.5. Yeah.
Lots of time dedicated to learning your craft and becoming the top in the industry at doing that.
Yeah. I had some good mentors, great guys I worked with to learn that. Also had some really bad examples on how to do it too.
Such is life.
Yeah, those are the best ones to learn from, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I think we kind of got the story of you growing up, how you got into solar, kind of where we're at now. What I want to cover now is a little bit of hobby stuff.
Okay.
How'd you get into draft horses?
So when we moved back to Gunnison, which was almost 8 years ago, because of the job situation, I love track and field. I got asked to help coach track. And for the first year, I just helped coach stuff, and I helped kids hurdle and do that kind of stuff. And then I was asked to be the head coach the next year. And there was a guy there that was a teacher. He was only there for 1 year, but I became really good friends with him. I asked him to be my distance coach because he does a lot of running, loves to run. And we became friends instantly. He's just a good guy, give the shirt off his back to anybody. Andy's peculiar. I guess I'm prone to talking to the underdogs because he wasn't everybody's favorite, because he dresses funny, he looks funny, but he's a great dude. Well, he asked me to help him one day go get some stuff from his old place in Price, because at that time I had a truck that could go pull it. Because pumpkin stuff, I'd bought a truck, and I'm hauling pumpkins for David Beck for Beck Family Farms. So I went over, and he's like, can you help me haul these horses back? And I helped him haul the horses back, and he's like, because you did that for me, I'm going to give you this team of horses. Because he could see that I walked up to the horse, and we went to pick him up, and this big, huge Belgian stud's just kicking and hopping and excited to see someone, and I fell in love with him. I love draft horses. They're fun.
You still have some?
I do.
How many?
I have one now, but I'm looking to pick up another. And the puller with the big Belgian, he's not a stud anymore. I cut him. She's just too old, arthritis stuff. So I had to, in this case, I gave her to a sanctuary because my kids didn't want me to sell her on the auction. They were worried she'd go to a kill pen, which is fine. I understand that. So I'm in the market for another one. So. But I'm in the search of. I have one they say is bigger than mine, and he's a gelding in North Sanpete, and they call him Waffles. But they say he sends a foot taller than mine, and mine's like 5'11" at the shoulder, at the withers. He's big, and the other one's a foot taller, is what the guy that trims my horse hooves said. He's bigger. So I'm excited. I love big horses.
Any other hobby stuff we should discuss?
Anything outdoors, anything. Hunting, fishing, camping, anything that, one, helps bring family together. And my kids love to do it. They love to ride horses. Family loves to do horses. We love to go camping. we're always going and trying to do those kind of things with each other. Fortunately for me, my hobby is family. And that's all that matters.
Speaking of family, who would win in an arm wrestle? Dan Hansen or Chris Hansen?
Oh, Chris now.
Not back in the day.
I've retired from trying to compete with those guys now.
You got wiser.
Yeah.
Anything else? Anything? I just keep going back to, and we kind of skipped over it, but hitting a riser, falling off a cliff, losing a house. There's things that happen in life, like, and they're hard. And you kind of gave some advice for that. But would you be the man you are today without those things?
No.
Looking back on them, they're never easy to look at, right? But are you thankful for them? And they probably have taught you a lot. So I just think it's really interesting that we celebrate the good times, and we love the family, and we love all of that, and we wouldn't be who we are without the hard times as well. So anything else that we should cover?
I just think with those hard times, just never give up. Like, it's hard, but don't ever give up. You fight, and you scrape, and you scrap, and you do whatever you have to do to get back on your feet.
I love that. Well, thanks, Dan. Thanks for sharing the story.